So my new toy that I picked up online is a Southern MPXS08 lockpicking set. Comes in this nice leather pouch. I just now getting started in lockpicking. I've played around with it a tiny bit before, but never actually got around to buying a real lockpicking set. I was always trying to get things open with paper clips and prongs of forks and whatnot. It's much nicer when you have the correct tools, I must say. So, this was about 30 bucks. I picked it up online. That was after taxes and shipping and handling and everything. You'd probably find it cheaper even. But yeah, let's open it up, take a look. Comes with 2 tension wrenches. You have just one at a 90-degree angle. They're both they're the exact same size, same length and width and everything. I sort of wish that one was a little bit bigger than the other, just so you had some more variety there, but 2 tension wrenches. Also comes with 2 rakes. You have your W rake, also known as a snake rake. It also has a sawtooth rake. It's fairly large, a bit too big for like the padlocks that I've been playing with. In addition to that, it has 2 half diamonds, a medium half diamond, and a small half diamond, as you can see. It has your standard pick, which is what you're going to be using for most things if you just want to play around, trying to do one pin at a time. Probably the most used tool out of this, besides the tension wrenches. And it also has a little round lock that I've yet to use. I've heard it's good for doing like wafer locks on desks and whatnot. I don't have any of that type to play around with yet, but if I see one for cheap or at a garage sale or something, I'll pick it up and play with it. It is legal to own lockpicks in pretty much everywhere in the United States. Might be a bad idea to carry it with you because you can be charged with possession of burglary tools if you have like an intent to commit burglary or if you were already committing burglary. But they could also charge you with just having a hammer or something in your car, pretty much anything. So pretty much legal to own, and I just thought I'd play around with it. Useful skill to have. You ever get locked out of your apartment or locked out of a bike lock or whatnot, lose your keys. It's always good to have a lockpick set around. Here's just a few demonstrations of me playing with it. Welcome to Lockpicking 101. I am horrible at drawing, so enjoy my horrible handwriting and pictures as I talk. They may or may not actually be beneficial, since they may or may not look anything like a real lock. You have been warned. So, first component that's of relevance inside a lock is this little cylinder. This is called the plug. So if you look at a lock, this gold part in the middle where the actual keyhole is, that's the plug. The plug rotates within the casing. So it's just a cylinder. And inside the cylinder, well, I'll start at the top here. So this is the top of the casing. And these are springs. As I said, I am a horrible drawer. This particular lock is 4 pins, so I'll go ahead and draw 4. So, lock has something like this. You have your spring, and you have these 2 pieces of a pin. The top part of the pin is called the driver pin. And the driver pin actually gets pushed by the key. It gets pushed by the spring, so all these stay relatively in a down position unless you insert a key. These bottom parts are called the key pins. And right along the top of the plug, this kind of dotted line here, what's known as the shear line. So what happens is you insert a key, it pushes up these pins different amounts depending on the size of these pins, so that this little part where the two pins meet, they all line up with the shear line, so the cylinder is able to turn. The driver pins get pushed up and they stay up into the casing, and the key pins, they actually line up and then they just stay inside of the plug, and they basically fall down within the plug. And then the plug can rotate freely, because the only thing that's keeping it from rotating the rest of the time is these pins blocking it. So lockpicking, basically, the way locks are designed, there's problems with manufacturing, slight variances, and if theoretically a perfect lock, you have to push up all these pins at the same time in order to unlock it. You put in the key, it pushes up the pins to the right amount, and it's able to unlock. In reality, the pins basically stick in such a way, they bind, that you can actually pick them one pin at a time. So most of these pins will just be free. When you apply a pressure to the plug, one of these pins usually will bind, which means it'll actually be, when you push it up push up on one of the pins with the pick, instead of just moving freely up and down, you'll feel pressure. So you push it up, and then it gets to the point where it actually hits the shear line, and the plug will rotate a little bit. And then once the plug rotates, you move on to the next pin. It'll be binding on a different pin. So you just go back and forth trying to find the pin that's binding and push it up slightly. That's the basic way that you pick locks, using a tension wrench to apply a slight pressure to the plug to cause the pins to bind, and then a pick to actually individually go in, find which pin is binding, push it to the shear line, and then hopefully you can feel the slight movement, and then you move on to the next pin. Another type of lockpicking is called raking, in which case you actually just take a certain type of pick and you go back and forth and back and forth. And it's kind of like the Newton's cradle, where they have those, I'm sure you've seen these. You have the metal marbles on a string. So if you have a bunch of those little marbles on a string and you pull this one out and you let it go, instead of these actually moving, the force gets transferred between them, and this is the one that moves out. And it's the same idea when you're doing either bump keys or raking. Basically, you go back and forth, and you hit these pins. And instead of this pin getting pushed into the way of the shear line, this pin doesn't move much at all. It just moves a little bit. But this pin, and all these pins, the driver pins, get shoved up, the springs contract, and suddenly you have this big space between all of them, where the driver pins all get pushed up to the top, and these pins don't actually move much at all, because the majority of the force is transferred to the driver pins from the key pins. So that's the idea of raking and bump keys. Raking and bump keys, they say that it can be bad on the locks, it can damage them. Like if you look up, you can find some forensic pictures online. Someone will look under a microscope of what the pins look like after you do this to it for a while. It puts dents and scratches in the pins. So just individually picking pin by pin with a lock or pin by pin with a pick is better for the lock than trying to do it another way. But lock picking with a bump key or with rakes tends to be the faster method. So if you're actually trying to break into something, then you probably want to use a rake. But if you're just playing around with your own locks, you probably want to use a pick. Learn to do it the right way. So the first thing I did was go out and buy a couple of extremely cheap padlocks just to practice on. First one I picked up, this was like $4 at Walmart. Extremely cheap, caliber steel padlock. Ideal for tool sheds, garages, cabinet doors. Yeah, very cheap lock. There it is, just your typical padlock. Nothing impressive. Made in China. Says 40 millimeters on it. Took a little bit of time to get used to getting this open, but now that I have, just insert your tension wrench. This particular lock, actually, it was harder than the other lock I picked up. If you put the tension wrench in like this, you can kind of see that if you apply pressure, it kind of slips under the, there's like a little flange there. you have to keep the handle of the wrench above these little studs, and if you're not careful, it'll kind of slip and move around a bit. But if you go in the other way, like so, let's see, how do I do this? There we go. I kind of like to use my thumb to push on it. If you get it in, just get it above that stud there. It might slip off, but for the most part, it's fine. And then I'm using the standard pick, not raking it or anything. Just push it in, get it all the way to the back, and then just a little bit of pressure. Try and find the pins that are sticking. Now go back again, and it's unlocked. So yeah, do that again. Our El Cheap $4 lock. Insert the tension wrench. So yeah, I'll go ahead and walk through it this time what I'm doing. So you insert the tension wrench, you just apply a very light pressure. It took me a while to get used to how little pressure it actually takes. I've heard that was like the #1 mistake that people do is they try and force it way too much pressure. If you're trying to rake a lock, it's you don't have to be as gentle. You can just kind of apply enough tension and let it off. But if you're trying to pick it, just a little bit of pressure. You don't want to bend the wrench at all. That'd be way too much. Just very light touch. Push the pick all the way to the back. Apply that light touch. And with the pick too, I'm holding it kind of like a pencil. I'm using my wrist to go back and forth, move the location. I'm kind of using my fingers to change, to push up. I just see my hand there. So I use the wrist to go back and forth, and then the fingers push up and down, and just very gentle. You want to be able to feel the pins. And also at first I was trying to tell where every pin is, but in reality it doesn't matter that much. Just go back. You can kind of feel when a pin is getting stuck, and then just do a little bit of force. I'll go back to the back again. I start at the back just because it's easier to get the wrench all the way, or get the tool all the way back there, and then come forward than the other way around. So yeah, slight pressure. Just go along the pins, and every time you actually unlock a pin or you push a pin to the shear line, you can feel it move just a tiny bit in the tension wrench, and then the plug moves. Let me stop talking so I can actually get that. There we go. And it's open again. So yeah, light pressure. You don't really have to know where every pin is. You just push up slightly, go back and forth, try and find the ones that are stuck and get them unstuck. And very, very light pressure. Hold it out here. Hold it kind of like a pencil so you can feel the pins. So this time, instead of using the pick, I'll go ahead and use the W rake. This doesn't require as much skill. Instead of actually trying to feel which pin is binding and push it up, you just take the rake, you push it back and forth, and boom, it's open that quick. As I said, raking tends to be quite a bit quicker. And also, like any kind of picking, you don't need that much pressure, just a very light touch back and forth. Light on both how far you're pushing the pins in with the rake and also your tension wrench fell out there. There we go. And that's how you rake a lock. Second lock I picked up, went with a big expensive lock here. We got the MasterTech Security Level 3. It cost me all of $7. So again, just a few cheap padlocks to play with. On the back here it says, dual levers for pry resistance, pin tumbler mechanism for resistance to picking. Yeah, not so much. In fact, it's an extremely easy lock to pick. But yeah, $7. A little bit bigger. On the back here, you can see it says number 3 master lock. Still has the touch under fire label on it. So same as the last one, just use my tension wrench and regular pick here. Got my tension wrench, got my pick, just light pressure. I have a habit of like wanting to get my fingers really close, but then you don't feel things as well. I think your hand gets tired after a while if you're holding it way out here. And there we go. Pick resistant master lock number 3. If this is pick resistant, I'd hate to see the locks that aren't pick resistant. In fact, I kind of find it kind of funny when I was trying to find a couple of cheap locks to play with. Pretty much every lock you can buy claims that it's pick resistant. They don't have security fins, they don't have anything that actually makes them pick resistant, but they claim they are anyway.